You're listening to the Career Musician Podcast with creator and host, Nomad. With 20 plus years of experience in the music industry, Nomad has done just about everything to earn a living as a career musician. From being music director to celebrity artists, playing iconic arenas and stadiums, composing for film and TV, and even playing your average local club gigs, he's done it all. Nomad's mission is to empower musicians across the globe with strategies for a sustainable career while blasting stereotypes, and to bring you tried and true wisdom from his colleagues in this crazy business we call music.
This episode features my dear friend Lucy Woodward. Born in London, growing up in New York and Holland, she is the daughter of two classical musicians, and as I tell her in this episode, man, she sure did have the storybook musician life. Working with the likes of Snarky Puppy, Charlie Hunter, Pink Martini, and several world tours with Rod Stewart, Lucy has done it all. Some of her other credits include singing for Celine Dion, Chaka Khan, Barbra Streisand, Nika Costa, Carole King, Joe Cocker, Gavin DeGraw, and our mutual good buddy Randy Jackson. If this weren't enough, she is her own artist and she has a killer body of work. You need to check out her discography, and when things get back to normal, be sure to catch one of Lucy's shows. You will not be disappointed. Lucy Woodward, welcome to the Career Musician Podcast.
I'm laughing already.
This is great. So I was teasing. I'm like, man, we go back hundreds of years. And Lucy's like, no, actually, it's 11.
You're like, we go back 35 years. I was like, don't make us older than we are. 11 years.
No, but the thing is, and then I said, you look great. You don't look a day different from when I first met you.
Oh.
So, yes.
Well, we have a very cool history because we also not only met, well, it's kind of such a funny story how we met. And I'd love to hear I have it in my mind. It's like visualized in my mind how I met you, and I'm curious how you remember meeting me, because it's such a weird, typical Hollywood story of how we met. And a song came on the radio the other day where I heard you play it that day. So, but I love your, well, it wasn't you playing it. It was a Bryan Adams song. Okay.
You go first.
Okay. Yeah. This is hilarious. So, was it American Idol? Was it American or X Factor? Yeah. So we both,
No, X Factor.
Was it X Factor? Yeah, because it was Simon Cowell's new show. Possibly?
Yeah, it was his new pad. Oh, sorry, you tell it.
No, I love it. Okay, so I got called to sing backgrounds for an episode of Simon Cowell's new X Factor show, and it was filmed at his house in the backyard. And so we had to, I guess, sing backgrounds, or I had to sing backgrounds for a few different artists, I think. And one of them was that Bryan Adams song someone did the cover of, Tell Me Have You Ever Really, Really, Really Ever Loved a Woman? And you had to play this whole like Spanish guitar. It was amazing. And I fell in love with your freaking playing because you're so amazing. And we were in the backyard, and then we became buds. And then like within a week or two, I was like, hey, I just signed to Verve Records, and I'm writing for my record, and I want to know if you want to write some song like that flavor, that style. And we wrote a song, and we met up in a studio. We wrote that song. We wrote a song called Purple Heart that I still perform to this day. And we wrote it in like 20 minutes because we were both going through the same stuff. It was crazy.
Wow.
That's how I remember.
Honestly, I cannot tell it any different. That's it to the T.
Yeah.
And I remember the studio it was a buddy of mine. I was using his studio to rehearse and write in. And
yes, that's right.
It was in North Hollywood, and I was like, "Hey, man, I use your studio?" Actually, it was Michael Elsner, who I interviewed on the podcast not too long ago.
Oh, wow.
So all roads connect.
I love that. That's so great.
Yeah, but it's so funny because the call for the X Factor, I remember getting that call, and I remember standing outside of Simon Cowell's house in Beverly Hills, like this mega mansion. Remember that place?
Yes,
it was crazy.
Black and white photography, beautiful, beautiful everywhere.
Yeah, super modern, streamlined. I was standing outside, kind of waiting for everybody else to join in, and everybody else to arrive, and we're all kind of collecting ourselves. And then you walked in. I was like, "Hey, nice to meet you." And like you said, we just kind of hit it off. But you had New York history.
Well, I don't think I had quite moved to New York. I think I moved officially to New York a month later. So I grew up in New York City, but
Right.
I'd been coming to, so what was that, 2010, for at least, 10, 12 years, I'd been coming to LA to make music. All my best friends had moved there. My publisher was there. I'd made records there at Henson Studios. So I was like about to make the move out there.
Yeah, and that's what it was. Once I know that somebody's from New York, that's it. The floodgates are open. We just talk nonstop.
And are you Long Island? It was
Long Island.
That's right. And I was like, my cousins live in Dix Hills, and they're, so there's the whole, New Yorker, and then I was like, you're Cuban New Yorker. Is that what I remember? Are you 100% Italian Cuban?
Cuban Italian.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I don't have a temper at all.
No.
I have zero.
Not on this podcast, you don't.
That's right. So yes, by the way, that song is amazing. I wouldn't be able to play it right now. I'd have to listen to it to kind of relearn it because it's been so long. But you've been playing it at your shows. I love that. And in fact, I think throughout the years, we've been on the road with different people, and we would text each other, and you'd be like, "Hey, I just performed Purple Heart. It's still one of my favorites." I'm like, every time you send me a text like that, I'm like, "Oh man, I love that song."
That's so cool. And we actually... Yeah. I mean, sometimes I do it as an encore. Sometimes I do it as like the opening song of the second set. It really sets a tone because I just do it with me and guitar. And actually the last 10 years, or no, not 10 years, like 5 years, I've been playing it more just with like baritone guitar. So it has this really dark, like super dark lullaby, and it's... it's just...
Don't even get me started about Charlie Hunter. Like, I have such a guitar man crush on Charlie Hunter, so I want to get to that. So let's not rush.
Okay.
Freaking love you, Charlie. Okay.
I'll tell him.
He's one of my favorites.
Amazing.
Yes, please do.
Amazing.
So, wow. Yeah. So what happened then? I don't know.
Well, then we never got to write any more songs again.
I know.
Together, but we will. Yeah. I have a feeling.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's just commit to that. But then I moved to LA, and then we were both just sort of on the road. I don't know. Right. This is just, we're both musicians, and we both tour, and we're always like, the texting is where we, that's that love text of like, "Hey, what are you doing? I'm thinking of you. How's your, the song?" And like, I'm just got off stage and I sing that song, so it's a real, that's where it started. Okay.
So you signed to Verve Records at that point? Mm-hmm. I kind of want to hone in on that because prior to that, you were, quote unquote, were you just a regular gigging career musician, so to speak?
Yeah, well, make this very short. I was signed to Atlantic Records in 2003, like a really big kind of pop MTV top 40. I don't even know if you knew that. Like a top 40, I had a song on the radio, top 40 radio, and I did like Japan, as we were talking about before, Japan, and Z100 was playing my song.
That's why Randy Jackson kept telling me, man, she needs to get away from that jazz. She needs to go back to her pop. I remember him telling me that.
That's so funny. Oh my God, because I remember Randy was such a big fan. He loved like the rasp in my voice, and he would like hire me on a couple of things, and he's like, "Be that Janice that you are, be that Janice." And so he always appreciated the jazz standard. We always have deep conversations about like jazz standards and the jazz composers of the 40s. But at the same time, he was like, he loved the soul side of me. And when I sang like my rock thing, whatever. Anyway, I was on Atlantic, and it was this very short-lived, like very fast signing, just get out there, go. And then also get dropped very fast sort of thing. So it was a whirlwind of a year, and that was basically my first deal. Then I took all my royalties. I had a couple of songs on the radio, took all those royalties, made an indie record.
Good for you.
In my basement. I was just like, I'm doing this. I need to know who I am, because you get very, very caught up and lost in that MTV Z100 world where they're like, lose 20 pounds and then lie about your age and wear this and don't wear that and all that world. So basically like lose 20 pounds by next Friday sort of thing. So then after you go through this trauma of all that, I have no regrets, because obviously you learn about yourself along the way and all that, and so many wonderful things happened at that time. But anyway, I lost who I was, or maybe I never knew who I was. You just doubt so many things about yourself as an artist when you go through the machine. And so I was like, I don't care what this costs. I don't even know how to make a record on my own. I'm just going to do this. So it was basically me and like my then boyfriend and my friend Ital Shore, who had just written Smooth Santana song.
Right, that's
and
huge.
So we had like funk bands in the East Village, like disco funk bands, like in the East Village years before. So we had a whole bond, and so he challenged me and he said, we need to write a song a day. We're going to write a song a day and just see how this goes. Even if it's not done, we're just going to write a song a day. We need to get you out of that mindset of being this pop top 40 girl. So we did that, and I put out this indie record, and then that led me to singing around New York a lot, which I grew up in New York, and I was sang at least once a month somewhere, Joe's Pub or this and that, and I was always in a lot of different bands, and but that was my thing.
Singing your stuff?
Yeah,
or
I was
doing
singing
covers as well.
No, I think I sang like a song from the Jungle Book, like I want to be like you, ooh, ooh. That was about it for covers, but I basically sang all my own material. And but I was in like swing bands, and I was in organ trios, and so, but I just wanted to write more, and so I was doing that very regularly. And then Verve started coming to my shows, and then I signed with Verve. And that's when I met you. So that was about 2010. And
okay, so there's a lot to unpack there.
Oh
we
my
gotta
God.
go over this. So it's amazing. But first of all, here's the thing. The whole premise of the career musician is to empower musicians with strategies for a sustainable career. Now, I don't care if you're the side person musician for, anywhere from mid-level to super pop star acts your whole career. Like if you want to just play guitar for, whomever, fill in the blank, Ariana Grande, Sting, 2 Chainz, I don't care. Whoever you, if that's what you want to do and that's your goal, then good. What I want to help you do is make that decision, stick to it, and figure out ways how to embellish that income as you go down that trajectory, right?
Totally.
If that's not what you want to do, if you want to be an artist, then I want to help you decide that quickly.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so intrigued by this part of your story, because that's exactly what you did.
Yeah.
I believe instead of wasting 5, 10, 15, 20 years backing everybody else up and playing everybody else's music, you committed right from the get.
Yes.
Even
when I didn't know what I was doing, I was committing because I had so much to learn. The thing is that someone put a guitar in my hands when I was like 19, and I always sang first. Writing was always second, and it still is. I love to sing first. I've obviously creative ideas all the time. I'm always writing, but singing is my number one instrument. I know that about myself. My mom was a singer. My dad is a composer. My stepmom's a singer. But singing was always, from the beginning. But once someone gave me my first like $50 to sing, at the bitter end, backgrounds for someone, I was like, yep, I'm doing this. It was just like,
there you go.
And then it turned into $100. And then it turned into a wedding gig, at age 20 in deep Jersey, Montclair, New Jersey or something. And then you're like, okay, now I got 5 gigs a weekend. And that's when you start building your chops. And then you're like, I got this. And then during the week, you can get off the waiting tables thing and you can write songs, and then you have all your work on the weekends. And so but that takes like vocal skill build it because you can't, I'm burnt by Saturday night. You have 5 weddings on a weekend. How are you going to get through the third gig? It's so much singing to do. Anyway, there's all that balance.
You're an amazing singer, though.
Thank you.
And that needs to be said. Yeah,
thank you so
ridiculous.
Much. Thank
Chops.
you. Oh my God.
Versatility, everything.
Thank you
pitch,
so much.
Tone, the whole deal.
Oh man, thank you. Yeah. But when you're 21, you don't have that yet. You just don't have that.
Right.
You're still like an athlete in training. So. Right. Then I remember someone hiring me to do like my first jingle, and I was like, this is fun. I don't think I was fast. I remember that because he was like, okay, let's try it again. He's like, Lucy, I really, really believe in you. I want to have you be my go-to girl because I think you're musical and you're versatile and I think you can get this and I really want to make you a lot of money. And I was like,
that's
great.
Right, yeah.
So I remember my first producer really believing me. Lloyd Landisman, he's still in New York. He's a great keyboard player. He wrote Proud to Be Your Bud. I think, he has such history in the jingle, like 80s, 90s jingle world. And he's like, I want to, shape you, like learn from me. You're not fast yet, but you're good. So, and then I just did that. And then you just get that skill of learning how to just pick up music really fast and hear the harmonies right away and
right.
offer whatever musicality you can to a very short session. So that's like the skill of being a singer. And then there's the art. And there's always a thing of like balancing both. And how much do you, train one as opposed to the other, or, you know what I mean? Like that balance.
Absolutely. And there's so many artists out there who we all know and love who only focused on the art and don't have really any skill, but they're still amazing.
Yeah.
And then there's some others, conversely, who went the other way. But then I agree with you. I think it's a nice convergence of the two.
Yeah.
That brings a nice balance. Okay, but here's the other part that really spoke to me about what you did. So you went through this training period, like you mentioned, which is fantastic. It's how we all cut our teeth, like you said. Then you got this big record deal, and you made some royalties. You didn't go out and buy fancy cars and try to get the biggest house on the block. You said, you know what? I'm going to take this royalty money and reinvest it into me. And that is something that I need people to really understand, because you had such tenacity to believe in yourself. And you said, you know what? The machine, quote unquote, tried to make me be this pop star. It wasn't right for me. I knew it didn't fit. But I made some money, I made some connections, and I learned lessons. Now I'm going to do what I want to do. I mean, that's huge. And at a young age, to know that, to have that wherewithal and foresight.
Scary. Yeah, I mean, I'd never really had that kind of like money in my life. Not like it was millions, but I was like, wow, I just got a really cool check from BMI. And I had a few songs, not just on the radio, but in a couple of movies and, So, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I didn't spend any money, but
of course,
no, but I didn't. I was a New Yorker, so I didn't have a car. I didn't know how to drive until I was like 35, basically. So,
that's awesome.
I was renting. I've never bought a house in my life, so everything was like I was really like living like a New Yorker kind of.
Sure.
But. And I wish I even saved more. I just didn't even know about managing money. So I just kept it in my Chase bank account. It was just there. Right. So it was just there. And so when, cause that's what I was taught. And then, so it was, and then when it came down to making this new record, I was like, I want to be able to play with it and, pay my friends properly. And I it's an indie record, so it's not a union gig. I'm just going to but I'll give the union rate. I want to do. That's the really cool thing about knowing what it's like to be a side woman, is, I feel like I have that skill. I know how one should be treated because I know how,
Yes.
So that's a really big thing. I feel like I'm more like a band member. I'm a band member of my own band.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're the band leader, band member, singer, front person, all of the above.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, everything you say is perfect because you're talking about budgeting money. You learn that lesson. Then you talk about the union. So many musicians aren't hip to the union. What they fail to realize oftentimes is when you're on the card, quote unquote, or on the contract, the rate is much better than if you just kind of negotiated it yourself or left it to chance, right?
Yeah.
Not to mention all the royalties and special payments. And so
healthcare for a singer for SAG-AFTRA can be healthcare. Yes. I mean, it's huge. I mean, I think the AFM union is different than the SAG-AFTRA union, but their job is to protect you. And when I'm in LA, I go to those singers union meetings because it's important to have this knowledge. There's always going to be a producer, whether it's a jingle or a record producer or someone saying, hey, can we negotiate? Can I just give you this $1,000 and then call it a day? And your job is you would like to have them bring that through the union, the singers union anyway, because because it's the right thing. It's the right thing to do, and it's protecting you in the long run. And the money doesn't even necessarily have to change. It's usually just people don't want to deal with paperwork. So the paperwork. Yes. It's all about the paperwork. Yes. So I of course singers love union gigs, of course, and you're always going to get the non-union offers. It's your decision or not if you want to take them or not. It's not a great idea. It brings the whole union down. They cannot protect you. They're there to protect you. So it's a very different. It's a different union than I think the AFM is set up, but it's just to know what you're worth and know what you're worth on paper and know what backgrounds are in a group of 1 to 2 duo or a group of 3 to 5 group. There's a lot of those little things. They all add up and they matter. It's just good to get educated regardless.
Absolutely. Well, like you said, get educated regardless of whether you join or not. At some point, I feel like if you're hustling and you're really doing this as a career, those opportunities will be presented to you, right? Yeah. I've done both. I've done non-union and union. Sure. And like you say, AFM is very similar to SAG-AFTRA, same, where there's different rates and different add-on rates that you get if you're doubling instruments, or like you said, if you're in a smaller group versus a bigger group versus a soloist. Imagine if you're the solo vocalist on a movie soundtrack that gets played all over the world, in perpetuity. Come on, those royalties are huge. Real.
Now let me tell you this one little story, which was kind of like I realized how important the SAG-AFTRA union was because they were there to protect me. So I got called. I won't mention names, but I got called to sing on a big pop record on a big label, and they wanted me to not only have big, massive, like 12 to 16 tracks of background vocals, but also ghost the entire lead of every. Wow. It was a very young artist who that's all I need to say. Sure. So sure. I was doing that was big in the day when like those vocal stacks were huge, like quadruples per part. So I would sing an octave, I'd sing a third, a fifth, everything, and then they can tuck it in however they want, just like the wall of sound vocals. And then some ghosting, what were you going to say?
32 tracks of vocal stacks.
Yes. Or actually like probably 16, and then like maybe a couple of, because it's 4 parts quadrupled plus a couple of ghosting, and tracks. So did that. Now, the union rate, I'm going to like rough estimate it right now, but maybe back then it was like 152 or 172 per side, like per track. So if you have 16 tracks, multiply 152 times 16, and then you're doing 16 songs because it's 12 songs on the album, and then there's 4 songs that are bonus tracks just in case back burner stuff. That's like a lot of money, right? That's a lot, substantial. And that's a lot of money. So they said work out. I had to do my own contracts because me and the engineer knew what he was cool. He was, and also back then I think they changed this a little bit, but it used to be that if the song was longer than 3 minutes and 30 seconds, you get double or a half more. I think I might be totally bullshitting now, but if it was on a Sunday, then you get more. But we were at our own.
If you go overtime, if it's on an off day, right? Correct,
yeah, things like that. Yeah. So I think that the engineer and I were on our own schedule. Like we just knew we had a month to get it done. So we were just like, hey, you want to do a vocal tonight? Cool. So I remember us working out all the timings, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to put this down legitly on this contract, like what I am really worth. And it definitely came out to over $50,000,
Yeah. And I was going to say it's close to 40,000.
Something like that.
I was close. Yeah.
And then, of course, the label freaks out, like, you have to come down. And I was like, but I also, you know what? I was like, I knew who was playing on that record. I knew the double, triple scales that these guys were getting, the band, and I knew what studio they were in. So I was like, and I'm the one actually ghosting this girl to actually make her sound like a singer. Wait a minute, what do you mean? Like, I know what these guys are getting and where you're recording it. This girl, So I met her once. She was never there, really. I met her once in the beginning. And So I did negotiate a little bit down. Yes, I got a nice check out of it, but I had to. It was like painful. The process of just the whole negotiating thing is
tedious
very
work,
tedious, and also just a horrible. You're negotiating your worth, and there's so much going on, and you want to protect yourself. You put, and at the same time, what everybody else is getting paid. So that's like the facts. That's the educated part of like, who am I? What can I offer? And am I being ripped off right now? There's so much thought.
Man, so much stuff. And this is why I love talking to career musicians such as yourself with all this experience and knowledge, because this is the real deal, folks. This is the real shit. If you don't fucking pay attention, then you're missing the bus, because you're learning from people who have done it. I've done it. Lucy's done it. Our colleagues and friends have done it. So I always say, you're not really negotiating unless you're willing to walk away. Period. End of story.
So hard.
Like if you can't say, no thanks, I appreciate the call, but no thanks.
How do you say no thanks?
Then you're not negotiating.
I know, no, there's no negotiation.
It's crazy, right? Because then you're just settling. How do I say, no? Well, of course, I always say no thanks with extreme diplomacy. Very polite and kind, and never demeaning or facetious at all. But oftentimes you have to know what's right for you. You just said it. You're negotiating your worth.
Yeah.
And it feels like sometimes it's your self-worth. It's not.
Yeah.
It's totally different, right?
Yeah, you can't take it personally, and they might be like, Lisa, you're the best one for this. Michael, you're the best one. You're the only one we can call. But that if you say, no, thank you, I really appreciate it, then they're like, okay, moving on. Who can we call next? It's not that emotional. So it's just because it's our worth. We're living inside of our brain, our soul, our body, and we can get emotionally tied to it. And on the inside, you're going to feel those feelings. But on there, as much as they're saying, you're the only person who could do this, you're not.
Right. No, you're not. So true. Oh my gosh.
I know. So you're not.
So then comes the other side of what you said. Yes, and usually I say you're negotiating, but you're not really until you're ready to walk away. But look, we always make concessions. As long as the person that you're talking to on the other end is cool and understands and really respects you and what you do.
Right.
Then yes, of course we're going to make a concession.
Sure.
And you made a concession, but you probably made 2 or 3 months worth of income inside of 3 or 4 weeks, or more perhaps, whatever it was. But that's the whole point. So we make concessions as long as that person respects you. This is such valuable info.
No, I know.
Thank you
and something you just said a second ago that made me triggered something. Oh, yeah. Well, what you said is, if someone, they might say, Michael, you're actually the only person who can play this. And there are plenty of people who really, really do want what you have to offer. And no, there is nobody else who can play that part like you can. Michael, we need you. Though you can kind of tell the difference, who's bullshitty and who's not. Because I know when I'm replaceable, and I know when I'm like, no, I know they really need what I got. And those gigs that come along, I would, because they want it from me, I would almost want to give it to them for free. Because it's like they know, you know what I'm saying? You got to do what you got to do.
Yes, but because it's now they're calling, they're calling on your artistic vision and stamp, right?
Right, which is worth way more than your rent.
Yeah.
But of course you got to know your worth. So there's all these little micro decisions to make in the process.
It's so funny we talked about Simon Cowell, because he created so many of these big shows that became, phenomenons over the years. I did the American Idols tour live in 2005.
Right.
And I did the first tour and it was great. And they paid a decent wage. And then they called me back to do the second year. And they told me the money. It wasn't him on the phone, but it was, somebody who works from his office. And I said, you mean, that extra money you're talking about, that's for my per diem, right? That's not. So what's the salary bump? Please let me know. And they were like, no, that's what we're adding to your salary. I said, no, I'm sorry. I said, if you gave me that per week as an additional per diem, that would be great. But now let's talk about the actual rate.
Yes.
Because that's how low it was.
Yeah.
I'm like, so I actually said no thank you to the American Idol tour. And that took a lot of guts.
It's guts, and that's a long time ago. Like you were, that's. So you said the 2005. Okay, that's like.
So 2006, 2007, they called me back, and I was just like, I'm sorry, but no, thank you. Now, again, I knew that I was planting seeds everywhere else. Right. So I was working my tail off to make sure I got some session work and whatnot and blah, blah, blah. So there you have it.
I mean, that's the thing. Anything can fall through at any time. You might have the biggest gig. I mean, I had 80 concerts cancel this year with Charlie.
Okay. Let's talk about that.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah. So, okay, we did all this other stuff. You learned all this shit.
And now
you're applying it in real life. Because now you have your solo career. And I'm looking at your website, Charlie Hunter and Lucy Woodward, music. Go. Tell us.
Well, so much has happened between that Verve signing in 2010. I did a record. I actually started touring with Snarky Puppy. Not just touring with them, but Michael League, the band leader of Snarky Puppy and creator, Michael League. He just moved to New York, and he was my bass player for a little while in New York. So he's like, you should come on the road. We did some gigs and some tours of like a little trio thing. And then he goes, you should come open up for us. I have this little band called Snarky Puppy, and we're basically in a van. It's 4 people to a hotel room. But if you're down, come open for us and we'll be your backing band. So I did that a bunch, like a lot. And that's when I learned, oh man, I just learned everything. It was like the spirit and the community. That was a big learning curve for me. Like I had already been doing my own thing. I had driven my own bus. You're steering your own career, like, metaphorically and literally.
So you would drive your own van?
Well, actually, no, I got fired. My band member fired me. They're like, one time I did that and I was like, oh, look at the pretty Oregon mountains. They're like, okay, get,
you're out of here.
They're like, you're out. They're like, nope, no more. And I was, they're like, and they're just like white knuckling, like, oh my God, this girl, no, it's not going to happen. So I was fired from my own. But they, anyway, so I remember hanging with Snarky, and it was, just opening up like whatever, 6 songs, something short. And they were just, there's no money, it's just a vibe. And it was just community music, maybe 40 people at a show, maybe 200, maybe 7. I mean, this is the beginning of their career. And I learned about that kind of hustle, like the touring hustle of just get in that tour bubble and go, and you just make it work. And it's about the shows, and nothing else matters except the show, and driving all night to get there, and spending as little money as possible, and cars breaking down, and people not showing up to your gig, and all that dirty stuff, right? So amazing. I learned that. I had toured and I'd done a lot of shows, but I hadn't like toured with a capital T. So that was my first taste of that. In the same year, I got called to sing to sub for Pink Martini. The lead singer of Pink Martini had gotten a last-minute vocal surgery. China had gotten polyps out, and so I had to fill in. I love them.
They're so awesome.
Oh, so awesome! And I had to
saw them at the bowl last year.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, no, and oh my God, they're so great, and they sing in like Croatian and Turkish and Russian, French. Man. So I had to learn this kind of like huge body of work really fast, and I was also in the middle of a massive breakup. So between Snarky Puppy and Pink Martini, this was like my heart was being healed, and this is where we've all had that. Anybody listening, you and I both know music is a healer. So this was, I put everything into that. There were just no more tears. And I just was like, I'm going to learn Japanese and sing it every night at Montreal Jazz Fest, whatever it was, Wow. So really, really intense learning, such an incredible gig. And then I got a call from Rod Stewart to join that. So this was like another kind of world tour. Well, Rod didn't specifically call me, but it was
huge.
One of those things where Conrad Kors, who's one of my best friends, he was a bass player and MD in that band for a while. Well, he was a bass player then for a long time. He had called me and said, hey, are you in LA? We're recording this Rod Stewart record. Can you come over and sing some backgrounds? And I was like, yeah, sure. I'm going to the dentist now. I'll be there at, 3 hours? He was like, no. You have to come now. And I was like, and he's like, no, Rod's not going to wait. You have to come now. So I went, I turned around. And that's
part of the gig. Sometimes we have to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just kind of went home, showered quickly, went there. And he also, one of the girls was there were 3 backup singers, and one of them was having a baby, so she was leaving for a while. So anyway, I entered the world of subbing for like 11 months, and then I ended up staying. And that was another like higher level of touring, and really beautiful bubble. Rod was amazing, and the band is my best friends for life. And so between Snarky Puppy squishing 4 people to a hotel room and business class Rod, I was going back and forth with this crazy touring bubble. Now both tours were amazing. The music on both tours was amazing. The vibe, the hang. One paid 0, one paid a salary. You know, it was really. But I felt my heart was in the right place. I was just like, this is what I do. It was a really, really big turning point. So
amazing. That's a great dichotomy to learn at the same time. Huge. Polar opposites, but so informative. Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God. Yeah. Like really learn. That was probably 2012. And that was having that both in the same year, appreciating the crap out of both of them so much. Being obviously the Snarky gig was my original music and it was a more artistic thing. But the other gig, like Rod Stewart songs, singing Faces music at like singing Gasoline Alley every night was like so much fun, you know, Stay With Me. And it was a show. It's a whole different thing. It's costumes and, you know, but learned so much from both of them.
Like a big stage show too.
Yeah.
The persona on stage. Yeah.
Yes. And learning, like I was used to singing small little clubs, and this was like, okay, big screens of your big freaking face and, you know, big moves and arenas and some stadium tours. And then that came along with making records with Rod. So I did that for 4.5 years. And then there was a point when I was starting to make my own. I was like, I left Verve at that point. And there's so many little decisions that you have to make along the way, you know, like what we were talking about before about your career and your artistic career and your singer career. How am I going to make the money to write, to record my own stuff? And there's so many decisions, you know. So
it's like you're supporting your own habit of creating your art.
Right,
you
exactly.
Have to figure out how to do
And investing. It's like you have a studio, right? You got to invest in your mic and you got to invest in your guitars, and I got to invest in you're investing in your record. So how do you invest that? You're not getting a day job. You're going to go out and tour with Rod Stewart, and you're going to do this. And it was also when I got offered that gig, I remember, and I think I had just subbed for like 10 months, and he offered the gig on my last show with him. And he said, the job is yours if you want it, you know? And I had to really think about it, because I remember when you're a sub, you're thinking, I don't really need this, or I don't have to stay here. It's not really up to me. You know, everything feels temporary. You don't feel totally. Right. So then I had to think about it and say, wow, if I take that Rod gig, I know what a full-time job that is. I know that everything else is back burner. And that was a huge decision for me to make, because I was just what I normally do. You go write new songs and you make a new record and you do that whole thing again by yourself. And I said, you know, I need to take a break from doing my thing. I need to go like just sing backup vocals for a while. Like I love singing background vocals anyway. So
that's such a difficult decision.
So difficult.
So when you did that, because you, like we said, you were always preparing yourself to be your own artist. When you did that, did you do no Lucy Woodward work? Did you just dive head first into Rod stuff? Or was there still some kind of a balance? I
think right away, because there was so much material to learn, I had to really just put everything else. Yeah, you have to. There's so many dance moves, and there's always like learning the language of the dance. There's choreography.
That's right.
So much fun. And then, but you know, I'm also a songwriter. So when a song pops up in your head, you got your little notebook or your notes on your phone, and you're just voice memoing away. So that was that was far less. You know, those moments happened because I'm busy learning Rod songs or whatever, and a huge catalog of them. But at the same time, after a couple of years of that, I was like, wait a minute, I've just been, all of these notes and voice memos I actually have a lot of ideas for a new record. You know what, I need to start, this salary is now going to go into investing this next record.
Once again, taking that initiative, knowing where to take the money and put it to work. That's so freaking smart.
It's so cool to hear you talk about it like that, because these are such difficult decisions, and I wish that someone said, yes, let's do it, the right thing, because you hem and haw over it. Well, there's this, and maybe I should just sing back up. And you go through a lot. Okay, good. Michael.
You do.
Everybody listen to Michael.
It's a lot of turmoil. No, listen, you did the right thing. Intuitively, you had it inside you. Right now, I'm the same way. Look, I'm working on the project with my wife, Nomad and Lola. We have our own band.
Yeah.
I'm like rubbing nickels and dimes together, figuring out how I can subsidize our next project.
Exactly.
And how, that's it. That's all I care about. Of course, I'm being cautious and I'm budgeting and I'm making sure I have enough money to pay my bills and so forth. But you have to do this.
Yeah.
We only live once. I mean, I hate to be cliche, but I just lost my father. And this is the crazy part. Thank you. I just lost my father last week. Oh, like, it's still fresh and new.
I'm so sorry.
So we had to reschedule because of that.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. My point is, my dad gave me that zeal and fire to say, no, go for your goals. Go for your heart. What's in your heart? Do it no matter what. And look, at the end of the day, we all pass.
Yeah, I know.
And what's going to be there when we pass? Okay, I have this great bank account. You can't take it with you. And the bank account leaves no legacy. But your art will speak for eons after you're gone.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my rant.
No, it's true. Actually, I was walking around. I'm in Rotterdam now, and I was doing some errands today. And
I want to hear about that too.
So many things. And I was walking around, to the bank, and I was just thinking about, well, I'm stuck on this song idea, and maybe it sucks, and I don't know. And then you're thinking about COVID, and you're thinking about the gigs, and I'm supposed to go to Croatia next week, and is that going to be canceled? And all these Europe is open, but we're getting a second wave now. So then I was like, I'm going to put on my go-to Buddhist lectures by whoever I put on Tara Brach or something. And I'm like, I'm just going to walk and do these errands while that's subconsciously going on in the back of me, because just when I get panicky, I mean, my father sent me to meditation camp when I was 19 in Scotland, in a place called Findhorn in Inverness. And
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Hold on. You can't just blow over that. Not every 19-year-old gets to do that. That's pretty huge.
You don't realize it till way later. You're like, oh yeah, I'm putting this. I realize that even if you meditate for 5 seconds and just press the pause button in those micro traumatic moments about making decisions, that leads you to make better decisions. So where we get caught up in whatever, social media or the money that we're not making, and there's this comparing thing going on. I cannot imagine raising a child in this world right just with social media alone, or a teenage girl, and so I know, the pressures of just hormones as a kid, and having to, just as a girl. And so you're watching this world. I mean, I'm getting a little bit off track, but you still feel these things as a grown ass woman. You know what I mean? You still feel all of this. You're still a person in the world. Just because you're working doesn't change anything about your soul. Do you know what I mean? So
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
I always ask my guests about principles and methods. And so this sounds like that you've developed a really nice method for yourself when being faced with difficult decisions. Yeah.
I mean, I think meditating has I don't do this every day, by the way. I won't even act like I do, but I can certainly sit. I mean, when I was going through a really big breakup a couple of years ago, I really relied on that to be still and you're just kind of thinking to yourself, and also not thinking, because the whole thing is about not thinking and detaching from any thought what you think of yourself. So that's actually, you know what I'm saying?
Taoism now. Yeah. I love it.
So it's not empty your brain. It's not even doing anything. It's just sitting in the uncomfortability of what's going on inside of your heart or your brain. So there's that stillness, and you have to
and not reacting to it.
Right.
Yes.
And that's really hard, but it has helped me through really crazy times, and not just basically anything. It could just, work, or where relationships go wrong, or even friendships or dealing with family members that are just can be a bit of a struggle. Just like the pause, just hold on. So I bring that up because today, what you said a second ago about this is the one life we got. And as you get older, you realize I got decisions to make, and you know what? But the quality of my life is also really, really important too. And I have the skills to make the right decisions, but then it leads, to the thing of like when to say no, when to say yes. There's a lot involved. This was like a super going off track of.
I love it though because it's so relevant.
It's really relevant to. So those are little tricks that I do. I mean,
Yeah.
Just to stay
well,
still.
I mean, you expressed a little bit of trepidation about having the like I said, the fortitude to. Yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this money and reapply it over here into my art. And I feel the opposite. There should be no hesitation. Yes, you should do that 100,000,000%.
Yes.
Like, go for it.
Right.
And that's where we went off. But
right.
I don't think we went off at all. I think it's perfect.
Yeah, no, actually, it's a really good point because then there are the decisions that you have to make. Like, say I was in the Rod Stewart band and it's 4.5 years in and I have all these songs and I'm recording with one of my dear friends, Henry Hay in New York, and Michael League from Snarky Puppy. So it's like a New York community record. I'm going on tour, saving my money, running back to New York to record these songs, going back on tour. It took several years to make this because it's timing. And so, and then a million years later, you have a record. And then, so those little decisions up until that point, I remember starting to tell Di Reed, who was a backup singer then in the band, she's one of my best friends then, and I was like, I need to talk to you about, I think I'm gonna have to leave. I'm gonna have to like leave soon because I got to go do this thing, and I'm not really ready yet, but I just need to tell somebody, and I'm starting to really think about the next stage of my life. And she was like, "Girl, you need to do this." And the next thing was talking to the MD and then management, and then when the right time is to tell Rod, and that was very hard, and that was like. We were in the middle of a tour and I had to tell him and he wasn't happy. I mean, he got like a little like choked up and then he was like, "Oh no, you can't leave us." And I was like, the first thing I said was like, "I'll be back." But I kind of knew deep down I wouldn't be back. And because I was also scared and you want to hear those words like, "You're welcome back anytime." Yeah. And then he sort of did say that, but I knew I wasn't going back. And so he said, and then he goes, "Do everything. Make sure you write your songs. You need to go tour. Do everything the label says." I'm like, this is indie anyway. But he's like, just go do it. And he's like, "I'm so proud of you." And he gave me a big hug. Like, he has got this real uncle side to him with everybody in his band. So he really did wish me well and said, we're always here for you if you want to come back. And we've remained friends. And so it's like, it was a nice way to end, but it was scary. It was so scary. Hey, this is Lucy Woodward, and I'm a career musician.
Binge previous seasons of the Career Musician Podcast and subscribe for all new episodes.
Follow the Career Musician on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date on the latest news and tips from the world's leading musicians.
Look at that. So it's scary in the process, but it has such a beautiful outcome. And I've seen his endorsements of you. Like, he endorses you wholeheartedly.
Yes,
it's beautiful.
He tweeted the record. Yeah, it was super cool. So nice.
Yeah,
and
so
I think
amazing.
It's like listening to your soul and knowing that I know that I couldn't make, even though his music is amazing and he's amazing, and that family was that band was a family, and I was just like, I need to. I'm ready. I got songs. I need to go do it. And it's going to be so hard. You know what it's like leaving a job that's been a job. Then I'm like, I'm back in the hustle game. Who am I? 4.5 years later? Woo! That's so scary. The same thing
happened to me back in October 202019, a year ago. Now, actually.
Now, God.
October-ish, November-ish, I left Babyface.
Yeah.
And it's a huge, I'm just going to be blunt. It's a huge mind fuck at first.
Yeah.
And then you have to go through your method of what you said, meditating. And for me, it was a little bit of meditating. I was actually meditating daily.
Oh, good.
Short spurts.
Yeah.
Just 10 minutes, but still.
Yeah.
Working out, journaling, staying focused.
Mm-hmm. Just let it songs. Purging. Yeah.
Thank you.
Purging.
It's huge.
How'd you get through it? How did you get through it?
Yeah. The first I say no. Let's call it November, December, January, February. The first 4 months were extremely difficult for me. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I had some relationships with band members that were tarnished, unfortunately. You know, some things had gone, awry in the midst.
Yeah.
Although to this day, Kenny, Babyface Edmonds, and myself remain friends. We're fine. Mm-hmm. I will say this: always try to make it amicable. Mm-hmm. Never, don't flip tables and curse people out and go off on a tangent, because it's not going to be good for you in the long run.
No, you got to stay kind. You have to stay kind.
Exactly. No matter what happens, no matter what transpires.
Yeah.
I'll say that because it sounds like your situation was great because it came from you. Whatever the scenario is, just always remain calm and kind, like you said.
It's the kindness that's hard, because we can all get tempered, and it's a crazy world. We're in a crazy world that we're in. Musically,
and we're emotional beings.
Yeah,
as musicians, come on, look at us.
I know.
You have to be a wreck to be able to write.
Can you imagine?
From the muse,
I mean, exactly. Waiting for the muse to enter your soul.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I mean, this is for you, but also for anybody listening. Can you imagine what life would be like without not just music, but without creating? Like, imagine if you had a normal, quote unquote, normal job, and you had no outlet for your emotional behavior. Who would you be?
Well, I would be a cranky son of a bitch.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like, I noticed, I was down in Florida with my family for 2 weeks. My father passed. It was so emotional. I still have all this hurt but in love for my family and my mother. But I hadn't created in 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
When I got home to my studio, I did one little cue for a TV show.
Yeah.
And for that 2.5 hours doing that cue, I was like,
there he is. Yeah.
I just totally let all my, proverbial hair down.
Yeah.
Wow.
I find, like, when I don't actually create something, I actually start feeling sick. Like, I might get the flu, or that I have chronic, like, lower back pain that I've had forever, and I'm always working on it. But
me too.
Really? And tour life does not help that at all.
It doesn't help that. And look, I'm sitting on this thing. I'm showing Lucy this lumbar support device.
God. Will you send me that link?
I'll send you the link.
Yeah, that's like for any. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, but that's a whole. And you actually have your instrument that you're playing over your shoulder all the time. But when I don't create, I actually start to feel sick or pain in my body. To this, like, we're very, very lucky. Feel incredibly lucky.
We are. Mm-hmm. Now, so we are blessed.
So great.
The gift. It's so awesome. My dad always taught me having a talent is a blessing and a curse. Mm-hmm. Because it's a blessing because, like you said, not everybody has it. So we are grateful. Mm-hmm. The curse is oftentimes art and commerce just don't mix. So you're trying to figure out how the hell you're going to make a living, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
Hence why these conversations exist.
Yes.
Let's use that to bridge us back to music.
Oh, yes.
Charlie Hunter.
You did ask me that like an hour ago.
You had an 80-city tour that got canceled due to COVID?
Wow. Well, okay, so Charlie and we met several years ago through Snarky Puppy friends, and he was working with this girl, Silvana Estrada from Mexico. They did a really cool record together, and she got her visa denied, like, for the third time they were about to do a tour together in the U.S. So she couldn't come to the U.S. He called me. He goes, "Hey, I love the blues. You love the blues. Do you want to jump on this tour and be here in 4 days? And we'll just do, like, the next 3 weeks." So this is 2.5 years ago. This is me again. Notice, like, the pattern here. My mother always reminds me. She's like, you always get these gigs, like, as a sub. Like Pink Martini, Rod, Charlie Hunter. Like, I'm always filling in, and then I make it my own, but I don't know what that's all about. There's nothing really deep there to talk about, but but I also know that I work really, really well under pressure. That's what I've learned about myself. Like, can you do this gig in 5 days, and learn, like, a shitload of music? So, and I like that kind of deadline pressure-y thing. So, went out and did this tour with Charlie like 2.5 years ago. And after the third gig, we're like, we need to record this. We need to really, like, do this. This isn't, normally he goes out as like a Charlie Hunter trio, and he's like, let's just go record this. Charlie Hunter, Lucy Woodward, let's do this. We're going to be on tour all the time. So we have
How many songs did you record?
We recorded that Music was, I think it's 11 or 12 songs. So we didn't, our thing was to take all really cool pop or old blues covers and like just completely transform them. So we do Terence Trent D'Arby's Wishing Well, we do an old Bessie Smith, we do Nina Simone. And then, so we did this record and I think last year was like 190 dates or something like that in 2019. And
that's insane.
Yeah, it was like driving across the country in a SUV a couple of times kind of thing.
And every time I saw you on social media, I was always so ecstatic. I was like, man, because I love Charlie Hunter.
Yes.
I love you. I'm
Yes.
like, oh, come on. The best of both worlds.
Cool. I learned so much from him. Also, like musically, just as a trio, I've always had a big band, literally a big band, or a quintet or more. If I have budget, then I add 3 more horns just for fun because I love big backdrop. But Charlie was like, this is what I learned from Charlie, was like, he's basically, if anybody doesn't know who he is, he has his own instrument that is guitar and bass strings combined into one. Sometimes he plays 6, 7, or 8 string guitar. And so
he pioneered that.
He pioneered that, yep. Hybrid guitars, if anyone is interested. So it would be him, drummer, and me. And he taught me that the 4th instrument is the space around you. So when I'm used to all of this big, arrangement, this was a very different thing. So I learned a lot about how I sing, and also when to shut the fuck up and not sing, just because that's also a really big deal. And when you're playing this kind of funk, man, it's like, just groove, like space.
Yes.
Get it?
I always say the same thing when I do a guitar solo. So many guitarists are 90 million notes, and I'm like, can we hold on a minute and establish a motif? Then expand on the theme a little bit,
right?
And,
take our time.
Slow down.
Take a 5-second pause.
Right.
That's exactly. I learned so much from that, and also again doing it like the hustle and driving a million hours across. Again, he was like, I'm going to give you a proper driving lesson so you can really do this. I was like, okay, but he never let me drive. Also, fired before I even got behind the steering wheel.
I love how you can't ever drive. No, don't let Lucy drive.
Don't let Lucy drive. Let her focus on her little singing in the back seat or whatever. So we did that for like 2 years or whatever. And then, so this year was scheduled American tour, Europe tour, America, even China was canceled. We were supposed to do China and Japan in February, and that was the first thing that was canceled, obviously. So that's why those 80 gigs, because they were rebooked, and then we just said, screw it. So we did record a new record in January 2020, like 6 months ago, that we will put out, but the touring thing is just not happening. Not yet.
What's the
inside scoop?
The climate like in your office with your managers and agents? Yeah.
Well, I'm in Europe, and countries are small. The way states, Florida to New York is basically Holland to Poland, 2-hour flight kind of thing. So, but every country has their own policy, just like every state has their own policy. So I did a gig in Switzerland and Italy in the last month or so, and people are masked and they're sitting down and there's limited capacities, and I'm supposed to be in Croatia next week and they're now spiking just like Holland is spiking. So there's a lot of, we have to just play it gig by gig, call a foreign embassy, call the Ministry of Health, see how everything is doing in that country. It's really heavy, like so November I have a longer tour, a few different countries. And we're just going to have to see. I mean, if people start paying attention, then we could be okay and get through that. But as far as like US touring, I mean, the sad thing about it is that, at least for the level that I'm at, I mean, also like the Rod Stewart level arenas, that's a very long way away. But smaller clubs, even like the 500 seaters or 200 seaters, some of these clubs, especially the ones that Charlie and I played, they're not even going to be able to be, they're not sustainable because they're so small. I mean, they've been suffering already. So even if Charlie and I went back on the road, those clubs to connect all those dots where you're playing 5-6 nights a week are just not even going to be there. So that it's the whole ecosystem is just really reworked. So this is the time now, pandemic world. I mean, everybody knows this if you're creative by now, to like dig into the other stuff that you do that you can't do on the road. If you're a touring musician, there's songs to write, there's things to practice, there's new programs to learn whatever it is. And I just finished, or I'm almost done with the sight singing class that I take every week online through the union. Like,
wow.
That's just because I know my theory, but I'm not a great sight reader. And so now there's no time like the present. So there's always something musically we can work on. You know what I mean?
See, you could repeat that a million times. It's so true. And oftentimes we get kind of complacent. We're like, but I don't feel like doing that.
Well, I feel that all the time. Oh my God. It's so hard. I did like scales today. I'm like, just do your damn scales. Just do them, you know?
Right. Get it done.
It's so hard. But then I do some workshops and master classes with like younger singers also, which is really fun.
I was going to ask you about that. You're teaching. Yeah.
I just sort of, sometimes I get asked to do it and sometimes I do my own thing. And, but when I'm talking to anybody they don't even have to be young, just sort of newbies, whatever age. If you get up and you do your 10 minutes of scales every day, then you are setting your mind to be, I'm a singer now. Or if you write for 10 minutes a day, you are a writer in that moment. It's like it becomes part of your fabric. And then you are just slowly making yourself that. And I tell myself that too. I'm like, great, I did my scales today. Cool.
That's right. I always say consistency is key.
Yeah.
And it exponentially grows. If you do 10 minutes for a week, guaranteed you're going to start doing 20.
Right.
You start getting into it.
Yeah,
right?
you
And
feel the
evolves.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Say it's a good day when you practice.
Yeah.
Or practice, it sounds such like a band camp thing, but
you
know what I mean? But like if you're like, okay, I'm going to go to the studio and like mess around and like not necessarily turn on the computer, or like you just want to shred some stuff. What do you do? How do you get into that mindset? I always like hearing about this from other people too.
Yeah, now it's much more compositionally speaking.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued with arranging and orchestrating and composing.
Amazing.
The reason why I moved to LA 15 years ago was to be a composer.
Right.
Hello.
Yes.
It took a little longer than I had planned. Life gets in the way, right? So anyway, so a lot of times I'll just sit down with a classical guitar and just start working on counterpoint ideas, or literally make believe I have no musical training at all, and just start touching notes on the fretboard and seeing what happens.
Yes.
I love that. That's probably my favorite exercise. Now, I'm not so much practicing scales and techniques as much as I used to.
Yeah.
Because like I said, more of my focus is on composing.
Sure, yeah.
But much like you, I took an orchestration arranging class from the union.
Oh, great. Yeah. See, there's so much. So good.
So many great resources.
Yeah.
And then different books. I still have this sight singing book sitting on my piano bench.
Oh my God.
I look at it every week. I'm like, darn it, I need to do that.
Sight reading for playing or singing?
Sight singing.
Singing. So actual singing.
Sight sing. Yes. So I'm like, because I've been putting that off for years. It is so hard, isn't it?
And like, your theory, it's like, but it's, as a singer, there's no, I don't have perfect pitch. I can't just go, this is C,
Same
so
here.
It's a very different kind of thing to train, but at least, it's, I think it's cool. But the more you do it, I was on this class last night and I was like, oh my God, I'm getting this. I actually have I can do this at a tempo. This is so cool, So it's,
and you can identify the intervals quickly, right?
Yeah.
That's the hardest part, the intervallic relationships.
Totally. But anyway, so those are the little
That's great.
Little things just to keep those. It's like an athlete. You got to keep your tools and muscles sharp. And that's hard when you're used to being on the road, like you are, like I am. And then those muscles start shriveling up a little bit because they're not getting use. You start using different muscles. And then
that's right.
The muscles it's different. It doesn't mean it's better or worse. You're just not, I don't know. For me, it actually is a little bit worse because I'm not used to wailing every night. So if I'm singing, if I'm writing something, I'm like, oh, now I'm using only half of my range. But maybe it's just a different kind of approach to music. I'm like only using the lower part, but maybe that's okay too. Maybe not everything has to be a huge dramatic melody. So I'm learning about that stuff too. Maybe it's the power of the words as opposed to your huge range or whatever. You know what I mean?
So the dynamics that you're not so used to covering normally.
Right.
Chill dynamics.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. So I always ask my guests for some words of advice, wisdom. You've already given us so much.
Oh my God.
And I just feel like this is the perfect segue. because what you're saying right now is great words of advice. Make use of your time, anything else that you've learned over the years that you feel like, oh yeah, this is really important?
God, I really can talk a lot, can I?
Yeah, but it's so great. I love this episode. It's so organic.
Okay, well, we're organic.
And so informative.
Okay. So. We did cover so much about sometimes it's very hard to believe yourself when you know that there's an instinct that's right. I feel like actually you might even have that down a little bit better than me. Because you're like, no, I know what I'm worth. I have to say no, thank you, or you have to speak up and there's nothing to lose, like by just speaking up and knowing when it's time to quit. The scary thing is like when we were talking about discipline before is like, you have nothing to lose. You can only gain, right? So you can only gain from doing those 10 minutes of scales. What is really holding you back? Is it lazy because you'd rather watch like the next episode of Breaking Bad, is it laziness? Which of course that has something to do with it.
Right.
But it's also like, where there's so many things that pop up, like, where is this, if I'm practicing, what am I practicing for? There are no goals, especially in this pandemic time. There are no goals. Like, what, am I going to make a record? I mean, of course I have goals, but like, what are we're so used to we're such goal-oriented people as a human race, maybe as Americans. I'm an American living in Europe, and I feel like, of course, I know a lot of goal-oriented people, but Americans are like really goal-oriented with a capital GOAL, and I sometimes I get a little embarrassed about that because there's like a drive that you're raised with. Go. And I don't like, are you happy? It's a really weird, it's a different kind of thing.
And
so,
are you enjoying life for the moment that you're in?
Right.
We tend to gloss over that.
Right. Because we're just so busy. It's like almost like your destiny is the goal, but not the journey is the destination,
Right.
So, but I mean, so those are the things, like what is holding you back, the fear. So I do think about that a lot, is like what is the thing that's really holding you back from doing those scales, or, and right now with this pandemic, it's because it's hard to sort of set goals because we don't know what's going on in the world,
Right.
and there's no, how am I going to release an album? And there's no tour. When I make music, there's a tour that's coming up. And
right.
Wait, so what am I doing? So, anyway, it's just stuff to just like chew on. It's not really like words of wisdom or anything, but it's stuff to pay attention to. I think it's paying attention to how you feel, any weird human feelings that you have about what's going on right now in 2020. I think it's all very normal, but pretend it's not pandemic time. And go back to advice is just try to get closer and more peaceful with the truth of who you are. And that takes time and skill and getting fired and getting hired and all of the above, and working with very difficult people. Like that's that, right. You learn so much from learning with very difficult. They're all lessons. That's okay. If we're going to take away anything, working with difficult people is the best gift you can get.
I'll say this: an understudy of mine recently came to me and said, I love what we do. I've learned so much working with you, and I want to finish this project just as long as I don't have to deal with that person anymore. I said, I'm sorry, I can't make that wish come true for you. Actually, you have to call that person right now after we hang up. I'm like, look, this is part of the training. You have to go through it. You have to learn, you know how many times I put my foot in my mouth and said stupid shit that I shouldn't have said? It got me fired.
Yes.
Okay, I learned a really valuable lesson.
That's your lesson. And you might be like full of rage and like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my mind with this person. And those are the best lessons ever, because
you have to go through it.
You have to go through it, and you have to remain, again, peaceful. And well, you don't always have to remain peaceful, but you have to remain respectful. You don't have to like the person, but it's like respecting the situation. I don't know. That's
I love it.
Okay, that's fine.
I love it. All right. So just anybody go to lucywoodward.com. All of her information's there. You got all the socials happening. Your music is everywhere. Your music is beautiful.
Aww.
If you haven't checked out Lucy's music yet, do yourself a favor.
Put
it on. Put some good headphones on or some good speakers. Sit back with a glass of wine or whatever your poison is, and vibe out.
And check out the song. Check out the song that we wrote called "Purple Heart." It's so beautiful. I get to plug that because we wrote it together.
Thank you.
So
I'm gonna go listen to that today.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So gorgeous.
Okay, hey. So I want to wrap with some rapid fire questions.
Yes.
If that's okay.
Yes.
All right. You ready? Mm-hmm. Favorite food?
Sushi.
Favorite libation?
Red wine, Pinot Noir.
Favorite sport?
Gymnastics when I'm watching the Olympics, or sport that I don't play, yoga, if yoga's a sport.
Nice. How do you spend your free time when you're not doing scales?
Oh, God. I'm thinking about doing scales. No. I'm spending more oh, my God. What hobbies do I have? Do I have any hobbies?
And that's a problem with most of us musicians. We need more hobbies.
I think the pandemic, real quick, was the lesson learned, because I was like, I get to learn how to make a new meal every night because I'm home. So that I'm going to say cooking.
Damn.
Cooking is fun.
Perfect.
Cooking is fun.
Love it. Okay, this next one I already know the answer to. Drive or be driven. Apparently, you're not allowed to drive.
The thing is, I like driving. That's the thing. I'm going to say I like to drive. But you know what? Being driven is pretty fun.
Yeah, it's not your fault. You didn't drive until you were much later on. All right. What activities did you used to enjoy on those long flights?
Honestly, it's the best time when you can just turn your phone off and just like watch every movie possible and be totally in somebody else's fantasy world, and that's it.
Yes.
I'm so happy watching movies, not thinking about anything but other people's problems.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
That's a great unplugged time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's the last song that you've listened to that you had no professional association with? You didn't work on it at all.
Like the last song that I just...
last song or band or artist, whatever.
I was listening to Johnny Cash all day yesterday.
Love that.
Just rootsy, simple, storyteller, boom.
Storyteller.
Yeah.
And that low grit tone that he had.
Yep. That's it.
All right. Song, band, or artist that changed you?
At any age?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's usually like, oh my gosh, this is...
Well, I remember seeing Blonde Ambition tour, Madonna tour, and I was in the second row, and I cried all the way home, sobbing, not only because I had such a good time, but it was a really spiritual, my first kind of spiritual realization that I was like, I need to make music. This is what I do. It was like spiritual, like I was sobbing, and just because I was so in touch with like my calling. That's weird.
That's awesome.
14.
I didn't mean to chuckle. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. You can laugh.
I always tease my wife, Lola, because she's like all about Madonna too.
Yes,
and I'm like, really? But no.
No, you're like, really? But when you're 14 and you're like, I'm going to sing.
That's huge.
Just tears because I had been found or something.
Wow. There you go. Yeah, You knew it. Okay, favorite TV show or movie that you've been streaming lately?
Oh, man. Well, lately, I'm going through a lot of them right now. I'm actually watching Amazon Prime Hannah, this really kind of cool.
Yes.
It's very cool.
Very cool.
But I think Breaking Bad will be my forever favorite.
It's hard to top that, isn't it?
It's hard to top that. And I think I'm going to start from the beginning and watch it again if this pandemic goes on any longer. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Are you reading anything? I see you sitting behind a
I'm at my dad's. I'm quarantining at my house. My dad, if you look up, like, it's like every room is like, it's so cool. They're all like librettos. He's a composer. So it's all like, but my stepmom is a philosopher now. She was an opera singer and she retired to study philosophy. So they're all books on philosophy and thinkers. And it's really an inspiring house to be in right now.
I can only imagine. I want to hear more about that.
Yeah, it's so cool. What am I reading right now? Well, I'm reading my sight singing book. And I'm reading Glennon Doyle's Untamed. I'm reading The Buddhist Brain. And I'm reading Where the Crawdads Sing.
Wow.
Sing or play. I read a lot of books at the same time. So it takes me like 2 years to get through them all.
But that's so cool. And a lot of that, most of it went over my head, but I love the fact that you're so engaged. So, wow. Okay, shop. Now let's talk about something less so important. Let's talk about shopping. Online or brick and mortar?
Brick and mortar.
Yeah, when you can. I know.
When I can.
Especially in Europe, for crying out loud. You got the best stores.
It's just stroll. Stroll. And
Oh, with the cobblestone pathways and everything.
That's why it can be fun. I like to try things on. When you do online shopping, I'm like, what if it doesn't fit? Then you got to go to the post office and send it, That was so grandmother.
Right, dream collaboration. You've had quite a few already, but if there was one you didn't have.
I always think Steven Tyler. Wow. I just want to sing a duet with him, or just like a verse, or even just backgrounds, or just one line, or just echo him. Steven Tyler. I mean, I love his voice so much.
Yeah.
I know it sounds like there's so many people I'd love to work with. I mean, I'd love to work with Chopin if he were alive, but vocally,
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, but vocally, Steven Tyler or Bjork. Bjork in some way.
Oh wow,
yeah,
that's great. Yeah. Chopin, Steven Tyler, and Bjork.
Yeah,
I mean, come on, that's a nice eclectic blend. They should do an album together.
They should. They'll find a way with that Chopin guy.
Yeah, man. All right, and finally, drum roll, right? Imaginary drum roll.
I got nervous.
What would you do if you weren't a career musician?
You know what? I think I would be, and my mother would laugh at me if she heard this, but I think I would, because you can't try to be this, you just are this or not, but I would totally be like an academic. Like I would just be in studying something.
Yes.
I would be maybe a philosopher, or studying philosophy, or I just the idea of studying the brain and everything that goes around with thought, human behavior, and the brain. I would be in that world, which would be a lot of schooling, education. I would just be in that. I don't even know the words to call it, what to call it, but that would be.
I love it.
So into that.
Amazing. You would be a scholar.
I'd be a scholar.
Yeah.
I'm a student for life anyway, though, aren't we all?
Amen to that.
What would you be?
Wow. I would, the scholar thing is a big deal. Definitely philosopher has always crossed my mind. I love the concept of that. I love architecture. I love interior design.
Yeah.
I love design. I love textiles and textures.
Yes.
Like I'm the nerd who, when you walk into a cool
touching things up
bar, I'm touching the walls.
Yes.
Like you go to in New York or LA or anywhere in Europe, you go to some cool bar and you're like, whoa, how did they think to put these things together? I'm touching stuff.
I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
So neat.
So
that
cool.
with a nice glass of scotch.
Yeah,
some good music.
Yeah.
Come on,
you're set. You're set.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So finally, I didn't ask you this question.
Yes.
So normally we'd end right here, but this is an addendum. We got to add this on.
Yes.
What the hell brought you to Rotterdam, Holland? Tell us the quick story about that.
Oh my God, Rotterdam. Well, I grew up in New York City with my mom. I lived in Holland till I was 5. I was born in London. We moved to Holland because my dad was a conductor for the Netherlands Chamber Choir. They split. My dad stayed in Holland, remarried. My mom took my brother and I to New York. So I grew up in New York, but all of my summers were with my dad in Holland. And so Dutch was my first language, and I've been kind of taking courses and relearning all Dutch again because it's like super difficult. And everyone in Holland speaks English, so you can never really learn, So my boyfriend lives in Rotterdam, and he's a jazz musician in Rotterdam and composer and arranger. And so I found I was touring so much in Europe that Holland's already my home my entire life, that the more I just got away from LA and was touring, I was just like, I just want to be here. And here I am. I just got my residency Dutch. I'm an English national living in Holland, so it's a whole Brexit thing right now, and I just got that like residency card today, like an hour ago. So, but I'm American European, and so I can work and live and transport myself all over the place, which is, I feel really fortunate.
Okay, that is so fortunate. You realize that is like the storybook.
I know.
Life of an artistic being, like just. And even how you were born and from, oh my gosh, the cosmopolitan life that you have lived is is amazing.
It sounds very cosmopolitan. It's more geographical because my parents were both classical musicians, so no one had any money, but it seems very fancy.
Yeah, but the culture and the art and like you said, oh man, just immersed in it your whole life.
Yeah,
so
just
amazing.
like really exposed to, when we started coming over to Europe, like really being exposed to Europe at a young age. I always knew I appreciated it very, very much, very young, but I didn't think I'd actually live in Holland. But now it's like Rotterdam is like one of the coolest cities in the world, and Amsterdam, and there's nothing like Amsterdam.
I couldn't agree more. I've only been like once or twice.
To Amsterdam or Rotterdam?
Yeah, to Amsterdam.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been to Rotterdam.
Yeah, no.
I've been to Amsterdam and Copenhagen, which is still close, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I'm so gel.
Oh, so jelly. I'll send you photos of the canals.
Oh, don't. It'll be like ripping my heart out. Come on. I'll be like, no, I want to ride my bicycle there.
Yes, I ride a bike every day.
Because everybody rides bikes. Yeah, I love that.
I swear, I just want to say this, like, everyone, you might be 95 years old and you're riding a bike, and everyone is fit, but they're riding a bike from such a young age that I truly think their health care costs are down because of it. Like compared to our country, it's in the culture. And you still eat cheese and bread every day, and it's fine.
I want to be European, so I'm so mad at you right now.
But you're Cuban, which is amazing, the most amazing culture ever. So
yeah, it is. It's a great culture. I love it.
Yes.
But yeah. Okay, Lucy, you have been an amazing guest. This has been awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
In the music industry, there are so many avenues to travel. Join host Nomad as he dives into the crazy world of entertainment, going behind the scenes to gain insider knowledge of how to maintain a healthy career in the music business.
Your value is not determined by the gig. Learn more by listening to the Career Musician Podcast, streaming everywhere.
I'm just a nomad, nowhere man, writing the songs in this one-man band. A nomad, yeah, I'm a nomad. Hush now, darling, you'll be fine. I'll be back this way.
Hey, this is Nomad, host and creator of the Career Musician Podcast, and I am thoroughly stoked to be an official member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Pantheon Podcast Network is the first of its kind as an all-music-based podcast collective. Please be sure to check us out at pantheonpodcast.com for more info.